takes for this in September 2022, so which the admissions process is opened now, and also we're looking for starting another cohort, dates yet to be confirmed, in March 2023. So we will be running a March 2023 cohort. We just have not finalised all of the fine detail on the exact dates yet. But if you're interested in March, keep in touch with us and we'll give you the dates as soon as they become available. Okay. So one of the key reasons that people choose to come to Lancaster to do their apprenticeship is because of the quality of the management school and the accreditations that we hold within the management school for the quality of our provision and teaching and learning. We've had around 400 apprentices so far on the programme, many of whom have already graduated and achieved their apprenticeship and their masters, and some who are still studying with us. And I think they and their employers will attest to the quality of the provision here at Lancaster. So that's our sort of boasting board there with some statistics. One of the key things to note there is the AMBER. The Emma, you're going to have to help me out. I've gone blank about what AMBER stands for.
So AMBER is the Association of MBAs, and it's a global quality assurance that recognises universities that teach MBAs around the world. So the key thing for this programme is that the programme has been endorsed by AMBER for those people that want to top up to the executive MBA. So it's a sort of badge of quality assurance by an external organisation.
So we have a quick one sheet summary of the programme to explain to you a little bit about it. It's a part-time postgraduate level 7 course to orient you a little bit about what level 7 means. That's a higher degree level. So we your first degrees will have been levels 4, 5, 6, and then so postgraduate comes up at level 7. It's a blended delivery with 12 days residential, and the fee is covered entirely by the levy. If you are from an organisation that does not pay the levy, don't despair. There are ways that we can work through the government funding schemes to cover 90% of the fee for your organisation. So even if you're not a levy paying organisation, you can still draw on funding. That would take you up to the end of the Senior Leader Apprenticeship, which will take around 2 years. So the funding covers you for those 2 years. Your essential admissions are undergraduate degrees. So it's ideal if you have an undergraduate degree. If you don't have an undergraduate degree, we may still be able to consider other experience and qualifications. So if you don't have a first degree, a BSc or a BA or equivalent, please get in touch and we can talk through what your options might be. And we're asking for you to have had 3 years in a professional role with some management experience. That may or may not include line management responsibility, but you should have a sort of management level, should be in a management level role. We are required to ask you for that by the end of your course you achieve English and mathematics equivalent of GCSE grade C. So if you don't already have English and maths GCSE grade C, we can still admit you to the programme, and we will support you over the first year of the programme to study for functional skills grade 2, level 2, which we can sorry, but my screen blanks out every time somebody wants to be admitted. So if you haven't got the GCSE grade Cs, don't worry, we can work with you to help you to achieve those in the first year of your programme. You would get extra time from your employer or we would help you negotiate that extra time for your employer to study for those on top of studying for your apprenticeship. So again, talk to us, contact us, and we will be able to help you with any questions that you have on that. Sorry, I've gone too far. I need to go back. The award that is attached to the apprenticeship, the Senior Leader Apprenticeship, is a postgraduate diploma in leadership practice. That's worth 120 credits. And then, as Emma said, we have a pathway from there post-apprenticeship. So when you've completely finished the apprenticeship, including the endpoint assessment, you can come back to us and you can top up that 120 credits to either an executive MBA or an MSc leadership practice. So I don't know at this point if anybody has any questions about any of those aspects. Please, if you do, either raise your hand or pop a question in the chat, and I and my colleagues will be able to field those. So if you've got any questions, speak up and put it in the chat. Okay, I'm going to ask Emma to talk to us a little bit about the Senior Leader Apprenticeship Standard, just briefly. Please, Emma.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Debbie. I was just going to clarify, Debbie, because a few people I've had email correspondence with over the last few weeks about the difference between an undergraduate degree and having a first at undergraduate level. So we don't need a first at undergraduate degree. We just need you to have an undergraduate degree or the relevant work experience. So just to perhaps clarify, when we say a first, we don't necessarily mean a first.
Classification. Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Thank you for that.
Yes. A bit confusing. So the Senior Leader Apprenticeship Standards are some government standards that have been set for all apprenticeship programs at the various levels, and they're broken down into these three areas: knowledge, skills and behaviours, or you might sometimes hear them talked about as KSBs. And so the ones that you can see here on this slide, these are the KSBs that relate to the Senior Leader apprenticeship. So these are the standards that we have incorporated into the various modules on the programme. So you'll see their leadership practice, so that's obviously reflected in the end qualification award that we give you, but that's a key component of the sort of learning objectives and the achievements during the programs. There's also leading and developing teams, which again I'm sure you'd expect to see that on a course like this. There's also strategic thinking and behaviour. Lancaster has always been very highly regarded actually in terms of strategy. We have some very high profile academics in the field, so that's a key area of focus for us in many of our programmes. There's also ethical and sustainable practice, which I think has come to the fore for most organisations and individuals perhaps over recent years, so that's another area of focus. And the final one is managing innovation and change. I think perhaps the last 2 years or so have taught us that actually being able to be flexible and adaptable is something that we all need to bear in mind. And I think particularly, I know we've got quite a few people from the NHS joining us today. Your innovation and change must have been unprecedented, I think, over the last couple of years. So that's a sort of key component of the programmes. And what we've done is all of the modules on the course have been mapped against these standards, the knowledge, skills and behaviours, and we can identify under each module where those 5 points are implemented. So they don't appear on all modules, but throughout the course of the 2 years you will meet all of those, and we take care of making sure that that happens. Do you want me to carry on, Debbie? I think that was a yes. Yeah.
Yes, please, Emma.
Okay, yeah. So Debbie touched on the fact there's a couple of different options with the programme. So basically there's 3 different outcomes for you. The first one is you could just do the 2 years, which is fully funded. You end up with a postgraduate diploma in leadership practice, which is a standalone qualification in its own right, and you could exit at that point, and that's absolutely fine. If you wanted to continue and top up to one of our top up options here, you've got up to 5 years to do that. So we also recognise that when people are working full-time and studying part-time, and for many people they're juggling perhaps either young children or ageing parents, and sometimes both of those things at the same time, after 2 years, you might want to press pause for a period of time, and that's absolutely fine. You've got that window of opportunity to come back and top up. And also for some people, it might be a question of perhaps securing funding or putting some money aside to help pay for those additional top-up fees. So the 2 top-up options are the MSc in leadership practice, so a master's qualification, and obviously recognises the same title as the postgraduate diploma, and the top-up fee for that one I believe at the moment is £3,000. Yes, Debbie's nodding. So £3,000 to top up for that particular qualification, and the executive MBA is your other option. Some people value the MBA qualification in its own right, and so that top-up option currently is £11,000 to top up onto that award. Both of those top-up options involve a further additional 6 months of study, so it's not a huge amount of extra time on what you've already done to get the full qualification. And also just to say, whilst we would perhaps like an indication at the start, if you definitely know you want to top up and you know which one you want to top up to, that's really helpful. But you can decide partway through the programme. That's also absolutely fine. There are just a few modules that are slightly different depending on if you're going to go ultimately for the executive MBA or the MSc in leadership practice. So hopefully that helps to clarify those top-up options, and we can answer questions if you have them. Debbie, do you want me to do a walkthrough of the sort of typical programme modules? I think that's the next slide.
That would be fantastic, Emma. Yes, thank you very much. I will attempt to go through at the same pace as you now. Sorry.
Thank you. I think that's auto moving on, isn't it? So just to perhaps give you an idea of what the programme looks like over the 2 years, we're starting here looking at year 1. So we try and get people up and running pre-start. So for September, we'll aim for sort of end of August, beginning of September. So an opportunity for people to introduce themselves and start networking with other people on the course. Also, you can make sure you can access materials. So we use a virtual learning environment called Moodle. So you will have logins and passwords and things to access those key information things, and you will do that throughout the course. So there's a bit of pre-work to get going with. And then our first module is leadership and organisational behaviour. You'll see here that it says residential, and it's not essential that you stay over. Some people in terms of travel might prefer to stay over, but very much it's not mandatory, and it's not included actually in the course. For those that do want to stay, we can highlight a range of options for accommodation, but most people tend to travel in and travel out. And you'll see here also the modules all sort of follow a similar pattern, which is sort of 6 or 7 weeks of reading and working on assignments and lectures and tutorials, and the sort of look and feel of the modules is the same. We do have a combination of both in-person or face-to-face modules as well as online modules, and those are typically sort of alternating from one face-to-face to one online. So you'll get into a rhythm and a pattern with all of these modules over the 2 years. So then the second module is human resource management. Obviously follows on nicely from leadership and organisational behaviour, and you can already see, I think, from those first 2 modules how they map onto those knowledge, skills and behaviours. So then module 3, if we can move on. Yep. Business ethics and sustainability. Again, you'll recognise that from those key objectives. And I think, as I mentioned, is something crucial for all of us to maybe look at how we can approach business in a slightly different way. And that's also a residential module. And then that's followed by managing strategic change. So the first of our strategy modules, and this one would be an online one. And then module 5, accounting and finance. Now, also perhaps just to give you a heads up, in terms of assignments, accounting and finance is the only module where there's an exam element, and it's only part of the assessment. So quite a few of our modules have more than one type of assessment, and we try and get a mixture of different types of assessment for you. They're all very much practice-based, so they will be anchored in what you are doing in your organisation, and your organisation will be the case study for you to focus on. But it's just to let you know that accounting and finance, I think, lends itself more. We do have to have one exam as part of the programme, and that's the module where it happens. But I have to say, touch wood, we haven't had anybody that's failed that over the last few years. So all credit to the tutors that get you ready to sit that exam. So then I think we're on to the final modules in year 1 and into year 2. So operations management. I always find that quite an interesting topic because it's maybe much broader than we at first think. Thinking around supply chains and also customers and all of those different aspects of operations. And then we also look at business economics. So that also sort of follows on quite well from the accounting and finance module, but looking at the bigger picture. And we're also very much used to having students from very diverse sectors on the course. So you might think, actually, we don't really have too much of a need to worry about economics in our particular organisation. But again, the tutors sort of are able to adapt the assignments and also the content of the course to reflect the different organisations that we will have represented. And then the last module on this slide, entrepreneurship and innovation. We recognise that for some people, entrepreneurship, it's not necessarily setting up a small business, but it's how you can be more entrepreneurial and innovative in the roles that you're doing. So perhaps thinking about how things could be done differently, and perhaps, you know, thinking around more agile working practices, those types of things, and also recognising which things you have influence and power to change in your organisations and how you can elicit those changes. So that takes us through to the last couple of modules on year 2, and this is the point where we would need people to make a decision as to where they want to ultimately end up. So depending on which route you choose, there might be a slightly different module to complete. So marketing management will vary depending on which top-up module you're doing, or if you're just doing the 2-year award. And we also do some work preparing you for your business cases, which is something then that leads into the endpoint assessment. So we allow about 6 months for this last couple of bullet points here on this slide, the gateway period and the endpoint assessment period. So those preceding modules take about 18 months, and then the final stage about 6 months to prepare for the endpoint assessment. And the endpoint assessment, just to perhaps explain it, is independently assessed. And it's assessed by, we use either the Institute of Leadership and Management, and Debbie will have to let me know if there's another organisation whose name I've just temporarily forgotten. You can tell it's my first day back, Debbie. Go on, do you want to say who it is?
The CMI.
CMI, thank you. Yes, yeah. So an independent body will review your portfolio of evidence that you have been gathering over the preceding 18 months or so, and they will then, you'll do a presentation and answer questions and things on your evidence. Also to maybe explain that we do assign you with a coach and a mentor, and they will also have been working with you all the way through the programme to make sure that you are fully prepared and ready to go into that endpoint assessment. So it's just to perhaps reassure you that we're very experienced in getting people through that final stage. So I'm going to mute. I think, Debbie, do you want to pick up?
Okay, yes, I will do. So yes, just to reiterate a couple of the things that Emma's been saying. So indeed, we have many of our apprentices are from public sector, and initially feel potentially that some of the modules feel a little bit less relevant on face value to them, as Emma pointed out, the accounting, finance, business economics and so on. But actually the purpose of those modules is not to make you an accountant or you know, a sort of economics guru, but actually so that you can understand how those aspects of business apply in your organization in a wider sense than just in your own department or section. So in other words, it's part of that jigsaw, part of that system, as how does the corporate strategy, your business strategy, whether you're NHS, local council, family business, whatever you are, you know, how do those aspects of internal and external economics and finance actually affect your day-to-day life and that of your clients, customers, patients, pupils, or whoever. So it's all highly contextualized. So talking about learning, design, delivery and assessment, Emma's already talked about the 3-day residentials that we have across the 2 years and how some of the teaching takes part during those. We're running those on a Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Now you'll already know that your employer will allow you 20% of your working time to study, to, you know, to work on your apprenticeship. That is part of their contractual obligation. If they approve that you're coming onto the apprenticeship, then they will be giving you that 20%. And we're very careful about monitoring that you do actually receive that. Now, if your working day isn't a Saturday, and you're coming to a Saturday residential, then your employer will need to talk to you about having a day in lieu to take over that. So all of, irrespective of when you study, you should have that time in lieu off work. But we can talk to you about that when we talk to you about employer responsibilities, as well as your own kind of commitment. You will study alongside other students, MBA, executive MBA. We have lots of events where we have all of our students coming together from all sorts of different courses and sectors to kind of share knowledge and experience. And we pride ourselves on the network, that opportunities that we offer you to build up within and outside your own programme. We have facilitated online learning, so that doesn't just mean that you're turned out onto a website and told to get on with it. There are lots of opportunities for people to get together, both in real life and synchronously online in lesson activities and tutorials, lectures and so on. So there's a really varied set of activities that you can engage in when you're on the course. Ellie's the expert on the next bit about the integrated apprenticeship in e-portfolio building activities. Ellie leads the team of mentors on her programme who will work with you from day one. And we were talking yesterday about how, you know, your portfolio is really start with the end in mind. So thinking about where you're working towards from the very first day of your programme. So we will be there to introduce you to your mentors, who will then work with you at gathering that evidence that you need to complete the course right from the very beginning. There's lots of postgraduate study support. So if it's a very long time since you studied, you're feeling a bit rusty about writing assessments and how to get the best out of the study, there's lots of help on hand within the business school and we have learning support and learning development people. So study support is not just for people who have particular needs, it's for everybody who wants to be able to improve the way they study and how they get the most out of their study. As Emma's already said, your assessments are all practical, so they all relate to your own organisation as your case study and on your own role within that organisation and how you're developing as a leader. And I've already talked to you a little bit already about the networks, both on the course and once you have completed the course across the different organisations. So Ellie, I don't know if you'd like to sort of chip in a little bit here, perhaps. We've talked about portfolio, but just add a little bit of detail to that about what the portfolio is and the endpoint assessment. That's okay.
Sure. So yeah, no problem. So you are on an apprenticeship program which is running with a PG dip beside it. So we make sure that we prepare you right from the very beginning to make sure that you are ready to submit your portfolio at the end of your of having completed the modules. As Emma was explaining earlier, all the modules are mapped to the different knowledge, skills and behaviours. So you are completing tasks as you go along, which will work towards your portfolio, but your mentor then will work with you in groups of small students where you can then discuss different ways and different evidence that you're going to be collecting to prove that you've met the different standards. But we'll work with you very much on that. But it's we're trying to make sure it doesn't feel like a big extra thing that you're doing. It's something that is going to be integrated into the course as you go. At the end of the programme, you're going to be completing an endpoint assessment, which sounds quite scary, but actually it's lots of students who've already completed it already actually say they really quite enjoy doing this process. It's a real opportunity for them to talk to another professional about all the things that they've achieved and learnt over the programme and how that's really impacted on their workplace. But we're there again to support you all of the way through that and make sure that you're ready for that endpoint assessment process. And almost all of our students, very high percentage, pass with very high marks actually. So we've got a really good success rate for getting students through the endpoint assessment. So please don't worry about this bit that's coming along at the back at the end of your programme. We will support you to make sure you're there. And you're with the ILM and the CMI. They also give lots of additional resources as well.
Yeah, and to add to that, Ellie and I meet with the CMI and the ILM representatives at regular intervals. So they are, to just explain, they are the external assessors. So your programme is not just assessed by the university, it's assessed by these external professional bodies as well, as Ellie's just explained. And they don't just come in at the end and sit with their arms folded being in judgment on you. They're actually involved in your course right from the very beginning. So when you enroll on the course, we'll give you some information about each organisation, and you can take it back to your employer and discuss which of those organisations you are going to choose, you and your employer are going to choose as your assessor. So you'll have plenty of information to help you make up your mind. Once you have decided, we will then register them with you and they will contact you and open up their portal of support to you, which I highly recommend that you engage with right from the very beginning, because they give you lots of pointers, lots of advice, lots of resources to help you to complete the assessment that they are going to give you at the end of your course. So in a sense, it would be mad not to get engaged with them from the very beginning. And we do everything we can to support you with that as well. But they are the guys who are going to be assessing you, so it makes sense to talk to them early. So we will help you with that, getting in touch with them. The off-the-job learning, the way that we organise it, so some organisations, some universities offering the apprenticeship just ask you to turn up every Thursday or whatever it is right throughout the 2 years. We recognise that you are busy people, you work shifts, you have different responsibilities, you have lots of colleagues. Sometimes it's just not always possible to attend, on the same day every week or anything like that. So we've organised our 20% off the job learning slightly differently. So the 12 days residential are there and they're fixed, and we do expect you to attend those, or else have exceptionally good reason not to, and be able to make up that time at a different time. But there is an expectation that you will attend those, and actually the very first residential, if you can't attend any of those days, then we will ask you to defer to the next cohort, because we see it as so important that you get that time, and we get that time with you to meet face to face. We deliver those everything else pretty flexibly though. So a third of your 20% time you will negotiate with your own line manager in the workplace and your mentor as to how you're going to use that time to best support your study on the course. So we will give you some guidance, but you will have a third of that 20% where you and your line manager will decide what activities you're going to take part in and how you're best going to develop on your individual learning path, because some people will already be expert in some areas, other people will have experience in other areas. You as an individual will do some assessments early on to just look at where you stand in terms of the standards and where you need to concentrate and what opportunities you can find within your own workplace to actually build up the knowledge, skills and behaviours that you need to demonstrate. So we support you and your line manager to do that whole process. The timings are flexible on the whole. We have a couple of other online webinars that we do ask you to attend. We do expect you to attend, but they're run regularly through the year. So if you can't attend on one occasion, there'll be another opportunity. Okay, everybody already has this presentation, or they shortly will do when I open it up from the chat. So the support that we have is kind of written onto this slide here. And most important to really, I think, are the academic learning coach, who will guide you with your assessments, who will guide you through your study pattern and your learning, and run tutorials and so on, and your university apprenticeship mentor, different person who will also stay with you throughout your course, and they will guide you with your apprenticeship portfolio and with your relationship with your workplace and your line manager. So ensuring that you're getting the 20% on the job and ensuring that your targets are appropriate and that you're keeping up with everything, and help you to resolve any problems that might arise through that. And the benefits and support for your organisation, you have a programme director who will work with your organisation and liaise in terms of the partnership with the university. So they will meet with your organisation quarterly. You won't be present at that meeting, but it's a way of making sure that we have our quality assurance that both the organisation and the university have developed a partnership and maintaining a partnership that makes sure that you get the best possible experience that you can. We provide support for line managers, so if your line manager is uncertain of what this all means, what it's going to mean for them, of how they manage time, of how the 20% is going to manage, we'll be running some sessions later in the year to help them to understand that a little bit better and to provide the support that we can for that. I'm just going to look at the next steps for the individuals. So if you haven't already talked to your organisation about your interest in the apprenticeship, now is the time to do so, and confirm that that they approve your application and they're willing to support your application. Talk to your line manager about your line manager and their support, and then apply to us. So we will give you the link at the end of this presentation to actually start the application process, and we will then complete a skills scan with you, and we will have a one-to-one planning session with you so that you can talk through individually your interests and concerns and help design your individual learning plan. Okay, so I'm opening up to questions now. So if Ellie and Emma would come back and we can have a look at some of the questions in